Before the first word was ever written, before Greece, before Rome, a civilization emerged from the sands and dared to shape eternity. This is the story of ancient Egypt, a land where kings were gods, where the dead lived forever, and where the secrets of the universe were written in stone. Welcome to ancient Egypt, a civilization that flourished for over 3,000 years. The story we're about to tell spans 30 centuries, longer than the entire history of Christianity. It's a tale of brilliant minds, towering ambitions, and extraordinary achievements that continue to captivate us today, from humble farming villages to the most powerful empire on Earth. Picture the scene. While much of the world remained locked in the Stone Age, Egyptian astronomers were mapping the stars, their mathematicians were calculating pi, and their physicians were performing surgery with bronze instruments. This was a civilization that would give humanity its first known peace treaty, its most enduring monuments, and concepts of justice that still influence our world today. This is the remarkable journey of ancient Egypt. Our story begins around 5000 BCE in the scorching deserts of northeastern Africa. But this isn't a tale of endless sand. It's about a river that gave birth to one of humanity's greatest civilizations. The ancient Egyptians called their land Kemet, the Black Land, named for the rich, dark soil left behind by the Nile's annual floods. Every year, like clockwork, the great river would swell with waters from distant Ethiopian highlands, transforming the desert into a green paradise stretching like a narrow ribbon through an ocean of sand. These predictable floods created something precious: surplus. When people don't have to spend every waking moment searching for food, they can do remarkable things. They can think, create, organize, and dream. The Nile's gift of fertility became the foundation of human progress. By 3500 BCE, small villages had grown into towns, and towns into kingdoms. Two distinct regions emerged: Upper Egypt in the south, ruled from the city of Hierakonpolis with its falcon-headed god Horus, and Lower Egypt in the north, centered around the fertile delta where the Nile meets the Mediterranean Sea, protected by the cobra goddess Wadjet. But around 3100 BCE, everything changed. A legendary king named Narmer, also known as Menes, accomplished what seemed impossible. He united these two lands under a single crown, symbolically wearing both the white crown of Upper Egypt and the red crown of Lower Egypt. This wasn't just a political victory, it was the birth of a civilization that would endure for millennia. The Narmer palette, carved in stone, depicts this momentous unification and stands as one of humanity's earliest historical documents. Fast forward to 2686 BCE, and we enter what historians call the Old Kingdom. But the ancient Egyptians might have called it the age when humans learned to touch the sky. Memphis, the gleaming capital near modern-day Cairo, had become one of the world's largest cities. Here, in royal workshops filled with the sounds of chisels on stone and the scent of cedar wood, the greatest architects and engineers of their time pondered an extraordinary question: how do you build a house for a god? Because that's what the pharaoh was. A living god, the earthly incarnation of Horus, destined to join the sun god Ra in his daily journey across the heavens. And gods, they reasoned, deserved monuments as eternal as their divine nature. The pharaoh's body was the vessel of cosmic order itself. The breakthrough came during the reign of Pharaoh Djoser around 2630 BCE. His brilliant architect, Imhotep, a man so gifted the Egyptians later worshipped him as a god of medicine and wisdom, designed something revolutionary: the Step Pyramid at Saqqara. Rising 200 feet into the desert sky in 6 massive tiers, it was the world's first monumental stone building, a stairway to heaven made manifest. But the ancient Egyptians were just getting started. Under Pharaoh Sneferu, they experimented with pyramid designs, learning through trial and error. The bent pyramid at Dashur shows their engineering challenges. Its angle changes halfway up when they realized the original slope was too steep. Then came his son, Khufu, with the most ambitious building project in human history: the Great Pyramid of Giza. Originally standing 481 feet tall and sheathed in polished white limestone that gleamed like a beacon, required 2.3 million stone blocks, each weighing between 2 and 15 tons. For 20 years, an estimated 20,000 workers labored on this monument. Contrary to Hollywood myths, these weren't slaves, but skilled craftsmen and seasonal workers, organized into teams with names like Friends of Khufu and Drunkards of Menkaure, fed on bread, beer, onions, and garlic, a diet so nutritious that their remains show they lived longer than average Egyptians. When completed around 2560 BCE, the Great Pyramid was the tallest human-made structure on Earth, a record it held for nearly 4,000 years until medieval cathedrals finally surpassed it. Its precision still amazes engineers. The base is level to within just 2.1 centimeters. But even the mightiest civilizations face their darkest hours. Around 2180 BCE, disaster struck Egypt with devastating force that would echo through their collective memory for centuries. The Nile, that reliable life-giver, began to fail. Climate change, possibly triggered by volcanic eruptions half a world away, disrupted weather patterns across North Africa. For decades, the annual floods were too low, too high, or didn't come at all. Famine stalked the land like a hungry beast. Ancient texts speak of people eating their own children, of bodies floating down the Nile like fallen leaves, of a kingdom torn apart by civil war as desperate people fought over dwindling resources. The pharaoh's divine authority crumbled along with his monuments. Local governors declared independence, creating a patchwork of competing kingdoms. Bedouin raiders swept down from the desert, attacking weakened settlements. The very concept of Ma'at, cosmic order, seemed to have abandoned Egypt. This catastrophic period, known as the First Intermediate Period, lasted over a century. Ancient texts from this era are filled with despair. The land turns around as does a potter's wheel. Behold, the fire has gone up on high, and its burning goes out against the enemies of the land. But from this chaos emerged renewal. Around 2055 BCE, a determined prince named Mentuhotep II from the southern city of Thebes began the slow, patient work of reunification. Through diplomatic marriages that bound former enemies, strategic alliances with powerful nobles, and when necessary, military conquest, he gradually restored the two lands of Egypt under a single crown. The Middle Kingdom had begun, an era that Egyptians themselves would later remember as a golden age of literature, art, and wisdom. If the Old Kingdom was Egypt's age of monuments, the Middle Kingdom was its age of the mind and soul, when Egyptian culture reached heights of sophistication that wouldn't be matched until the Renaissance. Under pharaohs like Amenemhat III and Senusret III, Egypt didn't just rebuild, it reimagined itself. These weren't the distant god-kings of the Pyramid Age, their faces carved in eternal stone perfection. Their portraits show careworn faces, lined with the weight of responsibility. Egypt's influence expanded dramatically across the ancient world. To the south, they conquered Nubia, establishing massive fortresses along the Nile's cataracts and gaining control of vast gold mines that would fuel Egyptian wealth for centuries. To the north and east, Egyptian merchants and diplomats established trade networks reaching as far as Afghanistan's lapis lazuli mines and the Baltic Sea's amber shores. But perhaps most remarkably, this was when ordinary Egyptians began to dream of immortality. Previously, only pharaohs could expect an afterlife, joining Ra in his solar bark. Now, anyone who could afford proper mummification and burial goods could hope to join Osiris in the underworld. A democratization of eternity that would define Egyptian culture forever. Death became not an ending, but a transformation. This was also Egypt's literary golden age. Death is before me today, like the fragrance of myrrh, like sitting under the sail on a windy day. Death is before me today, like the longing of a man to see his home when he has spent many years held in captivity. Around 1650 BCE, Egypt faced its greatest humiliation since unification. From the northeast came a people the Egyptians called the Hyksos, the rulers of foreign lands. These Asiatic peoples, possibly including Canaanites and Amorites, brought revolutionary military technology that rendered Egyptian Bronze Age warfare obsolete. horse-drawn chariots that could outmaneuver infantry, composite bows with double the range of Egyptian weapons, and superior bronze metalworking techniques. For over a century, the Hyksos controlled northern Egypt from their fortress capital at Avaris in the Delta. The pharaohs were reduced to vassals, paying tribute to foreign kings who adopted Egyptian titles but maintained their own gods and customs. It was a national trauma that would scar Egyptian consciousness for generations, teaching them that isolation was no longer protection. But in the southern city of Thebes, the Egyptian spirit of resistance burned bright. Around 1550 BCE, Pharaoh Ahmose I launched a war of liberation that would transform Egypt forever. Learning from their conquerors, Egyptian smiths mastered chariot construction and bronze working. Using the very weapons the Hyksos had introduced against them, Ahmose drove the invaders from Egyptian soil in a series of sieges that culminated in the fall of Avaris. This victory marked the beginning of the new kingdom, but it also marked a fundamental change in Egyptian thinking. The trauma of foreign rule had shattered their sense of divine protection. Never again would they allow their borders to be defenseless. Egypt was about to become the ancient world's first military superpower. The traumatized kingdom became an empire. Egyptian armies, now equipped with horse-drawn chariots and organized into professional regiments, pushed deep into Nubia, conquering territory as far as the Fourth Cataract. To the northeast, they clashed with the great powers of Mesopotamia, the Mitanni, Babylonians, and Assyrians, establishing Egypt as a major player on the world stage. Under pharaohs like Thutmose III, Egypt's Napoleon, and Amenhotep III, Egypt reached heights of power and splendor that amazed the ancient world. Thebes, now the empire's capital, became the richest city on earth, its temples gleaming with electrum and its palaces filled with exotic treasures. The pharaoh's palace glittered with gold from Nubian mines, ivory from African elephants, cedarwood from Lebanese mountains, and precious stones from across the known world. But perhaps the most remarkable ruler of this golden age was someone who shouldn't have ruled at all by Egyptian tradition, a woman named Hatshepsut. Around 1479 BCE, she became one of the few female pharaohs in Egyptian history, ruling for 22 prosperous years while wearing the false beard of divine kingship. Hatshepsut didn't conquer through warfare, but through trade and diplomacy. She sent expeditions to the mysterious land of Punt, probably modern-day Somalia, bringing back incense trees, gold, ivory, and exotic animals, including baboons and giraffes. Her magnificent temple at Deir el-Bahari, carved into the cliffs of Thebes with its revolutionary terrace design, still takes visitors' breath away today. This was also Egypt's cosmopolitan age. The pharaoh's court hosted ambassadors from across the known world, Mesopotamians in elaborate robes, Nubians bearing gold and ivory, Minoans from Crete with their distinctive art. Egyptian princesses married foreign kings to cement alliances, while foreign princesses joined the pharaoh's harem. Diplomatic correspondence, written on clay tablets in Akkadian, the era's international language, reveals a complex web of alliances, rivalries, and trade relationships stretching from Greece to Iran. But then, around 1353 BCE, one pharaoh shattered this golden age with the most radical religious revolution in ancient history. His name was Amenhotep IV, but he would rename himself Akhenaten, effective for the Aten. And with that name change, he turned Egyptian civilization upside down in ways that still fascinate historians today. For over 1,000 years, Egyptians had worshipped hundreds of gods in a complex pantheon. Amun-Ra reigned supreme, but Ptah, Thoth, Hathor, and countless others each had their roles in maintaining cosmic order. But Akhenaten declared that only one god was real, the Aten, the disk of the sun. He closed temples that had operated for centuries, dismissed thousands of priests, and moved the capital to a brand new city he called Akhetaten, horizon of the Aten, at modern-day Amarna. Instead of distant god-kings carved in eternal perfection, we see Akhenaten and his beautiful wife Nefertiti playing with their 6 daughters. But this religious revolution came at a terrible cost. While Akhenaten focused obsessively on his new religion, composing hymns to the Aten, Egypt's empire crumbled. The Amarna letters, Diplomatic correspondence found in the abandoned city revealed desperate pleas from vassal states. Syrian princes begged for help against Hittite invasions. Palestinian governors reported widespread rebellion. The great temple workshops that had employed thousands of craftsmen stood empty, their skilled workers dismissed. When Akhenaten died around 1336 BCE, the reaction was swift and brutal. His successor, a young pharaoh we know as Tutankhamun, restored the old gods and abandoned the heretics' city to the desert. After the Amarna period's chaos, Egypt experienced one final burst of imperial glory under the Ramesside pharaohs, particularly Ramesses II, who ruled for an astonishing 66 years from 1279 to 1213 BCE, longer than Queen Victoria. Ramesses II was perhaps history's greatest self-promoter. He covered Egypt with monuments to himself, temples, statues, obelisks proclaiming his greatness from Nubia to the Delta. His most spectacular creation was Abu Simbel, two massive temples carved into a cliff in Nubia, their facades dominated by 65-foot-tall statues of the pharaoh himself. But Ramesses faced a challenge that would test all his skills. The Hittite Empire, centered in modern Turkey and commanding advanced ironworking technology. In 1274 BCE, these two superpowers clashed at Kadesh in one of history's largest chariot battles. Despite Ramesses' later claims of glorious victory carved on temple walls, it was probably a costly draw that left both empires exhausted. But it led to something revolutionary, the world's first recorded peace treaty, written in both Egyptian hieroglyphs and Hittite cuneiform. Around 1200 BCE, a catastrophe swept across the eastern Mediterranean that historians call the Late Bronze Age collapse. Civilizations crumbled, cities burned, and mysterious sea peoples, possibly including early Greeks and other displaced populations, ravaged coastlines from Greece to Egypt. The Hittite Empire vanished overnight. Mycenaean Greece fell into a dark age. Egypt survived, but barely, and emerged weakened and isolated. The land that had once dominated the ancient world became a prize fought over by foreign powers. In 525 BCE, Cambyses II of Persia conquered Egypt, adding it to the vast Persian Empire that stretched from India to Greece. For over a century, native pharaohs like Amasis and Nectanebo managed brief revivals, but the age of Egyptian independence was ending. The last native pharaoh, Nectanebo II, fled to Nubia as Persian armies reclaimed the land. Then, in 332 BCE, a young Macedonian king named Alexander the Great marched into Egypt. Unlike previous conquerors, Alexander embraced Egyptian culture, visiting the oracle at Siwa Oasis, where he was declared the son of Amun-Ra. When he died suddenly in Babylon, his general Ptolemy founded a Greek dynasty that would rule Egypt for 300 years, blending Hellenistic and Egyptian traditions. The last pharaoh was Cleopatra VII, brilliant, multilingual, and politically astute. She spoke 9 languages, was trained in mathematics and philosophy, and nearly restored Egypt's independence through her alliances with Julius Caesar and Mark Antony. But after her defeat at the Battle of Actium in 31 BCE, she chose death over the humiliation of being paraded through Rome as a prisoner. Egypt became a Roman province, then Byzantine, then Islamic. The ancient language was forgotten, the hieroglyphs became mysterious symbols, and the old gods fell silent. For nearly 1,500 years, the secrets of the pharaohs lay buried beneath desert sands, waiting for modern archaeology to bring them back to light. That moment came in 1799, when Napoleon's expedition to Egypt uncovered the Rosetta Stone, a slab inscribed in 3 scripts: Greek, Demotic, and ancient Egyptian hieroglyphs. It would take more than 2 decades, but in 1822, Jean-François Champollion finally cracked the code. For the first time in millennia, we could read the words of the ancient Egyptians, hear their prayers, their poetry, and their dreams. Today, ancient Egypt lives again through archaeology and imagination. Every year, new discoveries add chapters to this incredible story, from intact tombs in the Valley of the Kings to lost cities emerging from the sands. we continue to marvel at their achievements. The pyramids that still dominate the Giza Plateau, the temples where ancient prayers once echoed, the mummies that bridge the gap between life and eternity. 3,000 years after the last pharaoh, their monuments still inspire wonder, their art still captivates, and their stories still echo across time. In achieving their dream of immortality, they gave the world something precious, proof that human beings can create wonders that outlast empires, outlast languages, and outlast the very civilizations that built them. 3,000 years of history in almost 20 minutes of time. This has been the story of ancient Egypt, and it's only the beginning.